Thrive Radio. I'm your host, Aimee Montgomery, entrepreneur and digital marketing agency owner. Today, my guest is Steve Thomas. He is a five-time CMO and brand marketing expert who's led campaigns for major franchises like Burger King and Subway, transforming Subway into a nutritional fast food choice with a track record of scaling brands like edible arrangements from 600 to over 1,300 locations. Steve now focuses on New Haven Direct Connect, a Connecticut-based business delivering beloved Northeastern flavors to those who've moved away. Steve brings decades of experience in e-commerce, local marketing, and brand loyalty, all grounded in his passion for connecting people with trusted, nostalgic brands. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear all of your wealth of knowledge in this podcast, if we can squeeze as much in as we possibly can. Can you tell us a little bit, start with your journey in the marketing world and brand development? How did you start on that journey? What got you to becoming a chief marketing officer?
Yeah, it started really on the local level, right? And I moved through positions with local brands, then to regional brands, and then ultimately to national brands. And way back when, I didn't realize that my career was going to spend a significant amount of time in franchising, but I worked for a couple of local franchisees. The first one was with Burger King. We had 14 locations in Connecticut, and I was doing the marketing work for those, and that helped me understand how a franchise system worked and coordinating with other franchisees to take certain programs that we initiated onto the statewide level. And then we got noticed by the regional office too, which was always a good thing. I also worked for a video store franchisee. We were a similar model to Blockbuster Video. And again, that helped me cut my teeth from that side of the business, except that was more of a regional position where we had stores throughout New England. And then really from there, I was brought on board at Subway in 1994, so it's ancient history, but it gave me, I was able to use a lot of that background, that experience of seeing things from the franchisee perspective to balance out my new position, which was on the franchisor side. So I was now part of the headquarters marketing staff, and we had responsibility for these, at the time, 8,000 or 9,000 restaurants around North America. And I think, brought a different perspective to that because I had spent time on the franchisee side.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's insane. It really is. And so you've been a CMO five times over. What are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned from leading marketing for these iconic brands?
Yeah, I think if I was to pick out one thing, and I've really brought this with me to every senior marketing position I've had, it's listen to the consumer, talk to the consumer, don't just listen to yourselves. And I've had to really go head to head with a lot of other executives at times because we're not our target audience. In many cases, the executives of a company that are leading the company are not the target consumer. And one of my pet peeves is that if you talk about something for enough hours inside of a conference room, eventually through exhaustion, it's going to sound like a good idea, but it might not be. So if you really want to go find out, talk to the people you're trying to sell it to, get their perspective on it. I would say that they'll either confirm a good idea or prevent a bad idea in a lot of situations. So I've really brought that as one of my primary focuses to every senior marketing role I've had.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal statement, actually, because I think that I run into that with people all of the time because everyone, and I don't think there's an exception, to be honest, that I've run into, everyone wants to talk about how amazing their product or service is. We all want to talk about, it doesn't really matter what it is, right? You
Right.
could be service-based, you could be product-based, it doesn't matter. Everyone wants to talk about ingredients, science, how amazing, whatever it is, and nobody cares. Nobody
Yeah.
cares. And you'll go out there, especially in the online space, and you'll think, oh, and start talking about everything that you're passionate about, ingredients this, ingredients that, and nobody cares. And it just hits just with silence. And it gets a lot of people frustrated where they just go give up. Even large brands, I've seen super large brands give up on social media because they're so into focusing on the wrong thing.
They're speaking their own language instead of the language of the consumer, what the
Yeah.
consumer is interested in or what their needs are, and they're talking over their heads, and that's why they're going like this, right? They're speaking different languages.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I could dive into that whole topic for hours.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and so you worked at Subway, and which was actually really groundbreaking because you were able to reposition that brand
Yeah.
from something that really wasn't making an impact to actually becoming a trend. So how did you approach that transformation, and what were some of the biggest challenges?
We had this problem in that we had this massive footprint, right? We were 8 or 9 thousand restaurants. We were spending $40 million on national television at the time and a bunch of other marketing work that was being done at other levels and in other tactical areas. But we had brand awareness, which was terrible. It was down around 7% or something like that, if I recall correctly. And if you talk to consumers, they really wouldn't be able to tell you a whole lot about Subway other than, oh yeah, they're that place that's open late at night for when I get out of the bar and I want to go grab a bite to eat from a late night place so I don't have a bad hangover in the morning, which is not a great positioning to have, right? When you have that many franchisees. So we started looking for things that we could hang our hat on. And the first thing we did was segmentation research to find out, were there enough consumers in certain segments that found different topics that we felt like we might be able to hang our shingle on? They found that relevant enough. And what we did was when we got to nutritional stories, there was a large amount of consumers that said to us, if it's credible and you don't have to invent a contrived product, yeah, we're very interested in eating something that just happens to be better for you. And it was a huge number of consumers. And then there was a secondary market, which was families, which told us the same thing because they wanted their kids to eat better. And so together, those represented a significant number of consumers, and it was largely untapped space. A couple of products had been launched, like Border Delights, and I don't know if you remember McDonald's McLean Deluxe. That was a contrived burger that was supposedly lower in calories, but they weren't genuine. And so when we decided to do this, we just told people that, did you know that our regular turkey sandwich, which has always been on the menu, it's always been there. If you don't put mayonnaise on it or cheese, it only has 4 grams of fat. You can still put mustard, you can put vinegar, salt, pepper, whatever. And people were like, no way. So we launched our nutritional positioning with 7 subs with 6 grams of fat or less. And we had a two-tiered marketing approach. One was very branded feel-good marketing, which was all about ingredients and quality and the feeling that gives you. And the second, believe it or not, was hardcore comparative advertising. Like I'm saying, the Whopper has 43 grams of fat and the Subway turkey sandwich has 6 grams of fat or 4 grams of fat. So if you want to get the Whopper for lunch, you might want to run there and back. And it was just like that. It was very in your face. But it grew our brand awareness dramatically over 3 or 4 years, turned sales from -5 to +5, and then we grew on top of that afterwards. And when you're talking a system that big, a 10-point sales swing is huge in terms of dollars.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's a perfect example of hitting on what they care about.
Yeah.
Their way.
It's still a pillar for Subway today. We don't talk about Jared much anymore, but he put a human face on that story, and they it allowed them to use that for years. But I forgot what they call them now, but they still have those same 7 sandwiches. And if you order them without mayonnaise or cheese, there's still less than 6 grams of fat. So it's a
Yeah.
great alternative.
Yeah, I think I started to eat there because of that.
Yeah,
It was the healthier choice.
it was. Yeah.
When you had to go out and get, lunch versus packing, it definitely like you're going to go to the healthier choice. So it's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
So now you have New Haven Direct Connect, which is also a phenomenal brand. What inspired you to start the business, and how does it meet the unique needs of people who've moved away from the Northeastern US?
So food is such an emotional part of all of our lives, right? And it occupies different areas depending on who you are. But for me and for many people I know that come from the Northeast, it's based in nostalgia and family tradition and gosh, all kinds of good feelings around holidays and good memories of maybe relatives who have passed on and things like that. So it's very deeply rooted. And the Northeast is not really a place where people retire. You've got the weather here, and there are other economic conditions that people are tending to move away from when they get older. So we're losing a lot of population to the Southeast and the South Central US especially. And I was aware of that, but I was also watching these same people through various social media channels bemoan the fact that, gosh, here we are in South Carolina and we can't find any pizza that's worth anything because they were spoiled from New Haven pizza or a particular brand of hot dog that we love in the Northeast that you can't really get anywhere else. And I did a little trial balloon and I put a question up and I said, if there were a business that would ship these products to you, would you be interested in ordering from us if we launched? And overwhelmingly, it was yes. Oh my God, you have to do this. After a few false starts in between CMO roles, I finally decided to launch it and we built out the website and we launched the business about 15 months ago. And it's been doing great. We're growing every single month and growing awareness and growing our customer base as we continue on. But it's amazing to see people who have just learned about us, the heartfelt messages we get. Oh my God, thank God I found you. I'm so happy now that I can get my New Haven food sent to me. And it's great. And everyone reminds me of my mom when I talk to customers too, so I have a real soft spot for them.
So, what are some of the most popular items that you have that people love so
Well,
far?
definitely pizza. So we sell a New Haven style par baked, flash frozen, vacuum sealed pizza. So we sell an awful lot of pizza. But other things like Italian pastry from a couple of the more famous bakeries in New Haven, they couldn't ship it all before they met me. So now
Oh,
there's a way to get that pastry down to people who want to enjoy it. And we do sell a fair number of Hummel's hot dogs, which are our hot dog brand here in Connecticut that people grow up with. And in people's minds from Connecticut, there is no other hot dog that you can eat other than a Hummel's hot dog. So we
oh
sell a lot
man,
of hot dogs too.
I love that. So, as you've gone through this journey and bringing that taste of home, because we've talked a little bit about how a lot of people have relocated or they travel, and so then they want all of this. What have you learned about the emotional power of familiar local foods in building customer loyalty?
It's huge. We have about a 27% repeat purchase rate, and I have customers that in the 15 months we've been operating have ordered from me 8 times. So once they find you, you become a part of their celebratory tradition or whatever. If I was used to having New Haven food every holiday and I moved away and I had to do without that for 5 years, and then all of a sudden they found me, they're going to stay with me. So we are very sticky. And one of the other things that I learned about emotional advertising and a connection emotionally is when I was at Edible Arrangements, for example, we really played equally on the emotional reaction that the gift or the purchase was going to create with the user as much as the functional benefits. So the emotional benefits become extremely important. It also, though, makes you a little bit insulated from price sensitivity. Not to say that you would abuse that, but people are not as prone to hardcore comparative shop something like that when they're emotionally engaged with a particular brand. It makes you a little bit more loyal and a little bit more tolerant of maybe I have to spend a little more to get that product sent down here. So those are two of the benefits, and it's just great. And I love hearing the stories from my customers, and I love engaging with them. And we use emotion a fair amount in our marketing messaging to cement that, the way it makes you feel, and creating that sense of tradition. And then we put in, of course, we want to have a little bit about value and about the functional benefits too, but we lean on emotion quite a bit.
Yeah, I love that, especially because I doubled down in on that on everything. And what's funny because it's always when I create social media content, it's always the top performing pieces. Anything, if I create something and I think, how's this going to make somebody feel? And if it makes
Right.
me feel, what is this making me feel right now? And I'll fix it until it makes me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so very important versus just putting information out.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
can be something as simple as a post or a more professionally done thing. But the other night, it was just Halloween, and
Hmm.
someone put a simple post up on our community forum saying, don't give teenagers who are trick-or-treating a hard time. Instead, greet them with joy because that child has chosen to embrace childhood over doing something potentially unproductive like partying. And I thought that was such a sweet message. It
Yeah.
elicited something in me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's a really good perspective. Yeah, because there are a lot of people that would probably give the teenagers a bad time. Oh, you're too old. But the reality is they could be doing a whole lot of a whole lot of stuff out
Absolutely.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You've had experience in the traditional brick and mortar and franchise, and now you're in more in this e-commerce space.
Hmm.
How do you see local brands and family-owned businesses thriving in the digital marketplace now that you've had a little bit more exposure to the online world?
Yeah, I there is this, I think there may be this misconception out there that just because I'm a small business, I can't really play successfully in the digital world because it's too expensive or it's too complicated. And it's really not anymore. And there's a variety of tools out there now that are either DIY, so you can operate them yourselves with a little bit of learning, or there are other or companies that specialize in working with small businesses that don't have huge budgets and speak to you in regular English instead of speaking over your head and these all these technical terms. And there's a lot of platforms out there, WordPress and WooCommerce, that you can build a very simple website on with an e-commerce engine, and you don't have to spend $10,000, $20,000 to get up and running necessarily. So I think the price of entry has come down dramatically in terms of being able to get started. Now, that's not to say you're going to stay there. You want to always improve, and you want to, like, my goal is to gradually become more and more comprehensive in my offerings and become more sophisticated in what we do. So we merchandise our site with bundles and things like that. But eventually I want to add, may we also suggest and other things. And that's reflected in all the marketing work we do. But it's you no longer have to be a $10 million business to do that. You can be a small business and start, walk before you run, but you can get started and start gaining traction. And I would say that's the phase we're in right now. We don't spend a zillion dollars, and we're still learning, and we're getting better every month, and we're having success. So I think if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people we either we want a magic bullet and we want things fast, which it doesn't happen, right? Ads are fast. So if you've got your
Right.
messaging and all that up, you can generally run an ad and get some good ROI or get real quick feedback of whether or not you're going to succeed or fail, which is sometimes is very helpful too. But yeah, and consistency is the most important thing. Consistency in your messaging. If you got those two things down, that's all you really need to start getting traction.
Yeah, yeah. Consistency. And part of me, for me, part of consistency is integrity.
Mhm.
So the way you do business, because you're inviting people to come in, and if that person you've reached converts, right? So that's great. You've done that, but you have to deliver on the promise that whatever your marketing messages made to that individual, and go
Yeah.
above and beyond that if you can.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah. So what do you think is the secret to building and maintaining brand loyalty, especially today?
Delivering on the promises that you make, right? Making sure that operationally you are able to handle everything that you've implied you can handle in your marketing messages. And this has been a mantra of mine all the way through my career when I was working for small companies or big companies. I always had a close relationship with the operational people who, whether we were at edible arrangements and it was Valentine's Day and we were doing a zillion orders, if we fail to deliver to that one person, we have to explain, make it right, make it better than right, and get that person won back over to becoming a fan because they're unhappy at the moment. So for my own business, New Haven Direct Connect, we employ the same strategy. I try to get out in front of things. So if I know a delivery is not going to get there on time because of a shipping issue or whatever, I'm contacting the customer. I don't want them to hear it from the shipping company. I want them to hear it from me. I want them to know I've got it under control, and that if all else fails, we'll replace or refund with an additional gift for them, whether it's an additional product that I pack in, which I try to do all the time. I try to give them a little something extra, or a percentage off discount coupon code that I send to them as a way of thanking them for their patience. But I've I think I've had a fair amount of success turning bad situations into really good situations by going above and beyond. The other thing is knowing your mission really well and delivering on the mission. So, like, our mission's pretty simple. It's to make people happy by bringing them the food they miss from the brands they love. So that's pretty straightforward. So we try really hard to do that. And whenever there's an issue with someone, one of the first things I start with is, I want you to be happy. So we're going to do this and this. And I feel like that's also part of our why. I'm a big Simon Sinek person, start with why. And if your why is well aligned with how you operate and how you follow up when there's a failure, then you've got that nice linear operational marketing slash operational approach in terms of how the whole company's functioning. And that's the best way, really, because then everybody's aligned and you're confident that you're delivering on all those promises.
So, what do you think has been your truth that has gotten you this far in your journey? And this could also be in relation to starting this particular business.
My truth, I think, has probably been, I want to say that the customer's always right. And I wasn't always in positions where I had enough exposure to customers. On some of my larger roles, I knew the value of a customer and I felt like the customer needed to be the boss in all situations. I wasn't getting a lot of firsthand feedback. I will give you one exception. The first time we ever went on, we launched national marketing messaging at Edible Arrangements. It was 2008. And we launched national digital, national television. We had been in some national print, but that wasn't really working. But the combination of TV driving people online and people finding us online just blew up our call center. We thought we were going to get through this with 15 agents. Couldn't handle it. Everybody on the marketing team started taking customer calls and taking orders. And that was a situation where the messaging that I created, I got to talk to a consumer who picked up the phone and wanted to order from us. And what a delight that was. And now I can do that, but on a much smaller scale. With New Haven Direct Connect. But I think that the customer is the boss, and making sure that you can stay close to that customer and you're meeting their needs. And if you're not, you're trying to hear it as close to firsthand from them so that you can adjust quickly.
So, you're actually living a reality that a lot of people that have been in the corporate space for a long time would dream of, where you've
Yeah.
created your own organization. What is one piece of advice that you would give yourself first starting out that you wish that you had?
I think it's probably just be patient with myself, be patient with the process. As we said, we all love to catch lightning in a bottle, but that's not always the way it works. Sometimes you have to put in the grunt work up front, right? We all have had done that have run our own businesses. I think being patient with that and having the faith in the business model that it will work and that you just have to stick with your system, make adjustments where you can so that you're being responsive to those consumers I just talked about, but having faith in yourself and in the business model that you've launched, that it will work. And it's just going to take a little bit of time. And it's ironic because as I'm answering this question, Aimee, I'm realizing this is the conversation I've had with hundreds of franchisees at bigger companies I've been with, talking them off the ledge a little bit because the first year and a half or 2 years in any franchise organization is difficult. You shelled out a lot of money, you're gaining traction, you're building awareness for your locations or your location, and you're still getting used to being in a franchise system. And you have to trust that those systems are going to work. And I've had so many conversations saying, look, I know this is your first location, trust us. This marketing strategy has worked for the other 197 of them that are out there in New England. Okay. So it will work for you. You just have to give it time to come around. So I'm talking to myself now saying the same thing.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with another business owner. We were talking about that whole journey. Like, I call it the 5 year of suck. I actually
That's
because
great.
it's like the first 5 years you've got to go through, and especially if you're bootstrapping and you don't have investors and all of this, you're out there
Yeah.
bootstrapping and you've got to succeed because you got to eat. And I think back, like I'm doing really well now. I'm looking forward to hiring in the new year and getting some more of my time back. But I went through a whole phase where I was living below poverty level,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
everyone's got to pay the piper. You've got to pay and you've got to do the hard work, but eventually starts it. And it's also that personal development program that a business is. And it changes you, and half the time you're the one that's in the way.
That's
Right?
true. Yeah. Yeah.
I think some of the things we've touched on today, gosh, I wish if I had gotten it earlier in my school. And because it's very easy to be like, I know that this is what I'm gonna do, and I believe in this. And sometimes that's really great. You have that I don't know, tenacity to just go for things, but you also have to equally be able to be wrong and let go and
Yep.
shift. And
Yep.
the faster you shift, and sometimes I wish that I had the ability to shift faster because that has not been my skill set. But every time I do shift, usually the last second, everything turns around.
Yeah. And part of that is understanding that you're open to hearing a different way. And then you have to evaluate it and then make the shift. And so I haven't always been great at that either, candidly, but I found that with this business, because I'm a new entrepreneur. So I look to other entrepreneurs for approaches. And in many cases, they have said a lot of those similar things. So I
Yeah.
love what you said, the 5 years of suck. That's
Yeah.
good.
We all go there. I think I should make a t-shirt. Start making some merch, the 5 years of suck. If you get through that, then I feel like you've gotten your wings as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I'm glad to
And
hear that you're over the crest, and that gives me inspiration to keep pushing the ball uphill.
yeah, and I'll tell you this is like I was so worried in the beginning because you take a lot of hits, you take a lot of sacrifice. Sometimes you've got to take loans on things that you wish that you didn't have to take loans on. And I just kept thinking in my mind, I'm going to so succeed that none of this is going to matter. And that's exactly what's happened.
Awesome. That's
Right?
great.
So
Yeah.
everything just turns around and it cleans up and life is, then you have new problems like no time.
Yeah.
But that's I'd rather work 24/7 than being in the 5 years of sucks. Yeah,
I agree.
definitely.
I
So,
agree.
Steve, if there are individuals that are listening that would love to check out New Haven Direct Connect, what's the best way to do?
Sure, they can go to our website, which is newhavendirectconnect.com, or they can call us 877-219-5150. I love talking to people that are interested in learning about our business. And if anyone wants to reach out to me, they can get to me at ssthomas118@gmail.
Perfect. I'll put all your links down below. Thank you so much
Hey,
for coming on today and sharing your expertise.
thanks, Amy. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Yes, definitely. And if you are listening, you want more information about this podcast or upcoming shows, you can visit acalltothrive.com. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week.